Sorry for the good afternoon.
You can start it out.
Yes, I've started recording. All right, my name's Tim. I'm the development drafting manager for, I'm not sure if everyone here, most of you here know me, I think. Yeah, that'd be great. So this is the first of what we hope will be fortnightly meetings where we review some Archicad issues related to our practice at Marcorp. I'm not sure how we're going to go today. It's going to be probably fairly basic to start with today, just to cover a few things, just so that we're all on the same page. And so that everyone who uses Archicad at Marcorp can get to see each other and can see a little bit better about what we all do. Because we're all working towards the same end, but different departments, we don't all always get to talk with each other and see what we're doing. So I want to start with some, I've got a series of slides, we'll touch on a few things. The first thing I wanted to go over was just to cover the real basics with where we're at with Archicad. As most of you know, most of our masters were built on Archicad 18, and up until very recently we were still using Archicad 18. Hopefully we're all using Archicad 25 now. Is that correct? Yes? Good. Because there have been a lot of issues with 18. It's done amazingly well, and I think everyone has done a great job persisting with the masters that we've had for so long. They've done a very good job, but we're ready to move on from them. So with 25, we've got some advantages now. As we proceed, the new masters that are going to be built will be built in 25 or 26 from now on. My team has just started the 2 new masters in Archicad 25, and all new masters from now on will be done in 25 or 26. We have a couple of masters that have already been built into 25, and when everybody in production encounters those, they're going to look quite different. The only ones we've got so far are the D2, the S6.3, and the Ambulance 656, which just opened. So the D2, you may well see that soon. Has anyone seen a D2 yet coming through? Not yet? Because it's quite a big seller. I'm sure it'll be coming through soon, and it's going to look very different to the other files that you've used so far. We'll talk about that more in future weeks. We'll talk about how the new template is going to be different. The S6.3, I don't think there've been any sales yet. It's a new one. It was built in 25, and the Ambulance is a new release, which we're hoping will do well, but it's only just open, so we've got a little time yet. Just a bit of background in the way Marcorp was run before. We got to Archicad 18, and then we kind of got stuck there, and we didn't update each year. And in future, we're going to change that. We're going to update every year to the new version. We've considered, different ways of doing that, whether it's just, every year or every second year. But because we're turning over the same files and we're using the same jobs all the time, it's better, I think, to upgrade every year. I would like to have already done 26, but there's been a lot going on. We will be changing to 26 very soon. I'll get IT to upgrade everyone's computers, and we'll start using that soon. There will be, as we go on, then there'll be a mix of files, but Archicad has gotten much better at using older files and different versions of files in the current version. So I don't expect we'll have any difficulty with that, especially once we've got those files going in 25. Okay. The next thing I wanted to mention was version numbers. Hopefully everybody's across this, but I just want to touch on it to make sure we're clear. All files have a code number and they have a version number at the end. I renumbered those a while ago. Everything that that was here already, that was built in Archicad 18 before any of our recent upgrades was version 1. It might have been built a long time ago or more recently, but they were all version 1. Then we brought in DNA 1, which was a series of updates that primarily aimed at the double stories, where we upgraded the staircases, or rather made the stairs standard. So all double stories should now have standard stairs. We also standardized the windows, and there are a couple of other little changes. A lot of those files have been released, and a lot of them have been done but not released yet, and we're going to continue to trickle those through. But version 2 looks a bit different to version 1, and we've run into a bit of trouble, I think, where there was advice that we have to use, when in production, have to use the version that was sold, whether version 1 was sold or version 2, which is correct. But when we get to version 3, which is a conversion to wall-on-wall, that doesn't apply anymore. Every file has to be converted to wall-on-wall, whether the client bought version 1 or version 2, it's still got to be converted to wall-on-wall. We're working through doing version 3, which is the upgrade to wall-on-wall construction. If there is a version 3 in the available, you should use that. I think that should have been happening, but I don't know that that's been going through yet. We've been working at updating all the files to version 3 so that we don't have to convert them here. My team in head office has been converting the production files, as you all know, and we'd really like to stop doing that soon if we can, but it's going to take a little while, and we have to start using the files, the masters that have already been converted. So please do that if that comes up. There is going to be another update coming through, not sure when, possibly, it'll probably won't be till next year. That'll be version 4, which is DNA 3, and that's going to be modules for all wet areas, and there'll be a bit more standardization, and when we do that, we're going to rebuild the masters from scratch. So there won't be any more masters, eventually there won't be any more masters built in 18. That said, it's going to take a very long time for this to filter through, so there are always going to be a range of different masters at different levels. We're just going to have to live with that. I think it's been working pretty well, but I know there are issues, but we'll try and keep working with it as best we can. Okay, work environment I'm going to touch on very quickly. Archicad 25. Is everyone using the work environment that everyone in head office, is everyone using the work environment that I set up?
Yeah.
Not sure, maybe. I would like everyone to use it, please. And for PG, I know I haven't made it available to you. I spoke with Di about this briefly yesterday. I'm going to make it available for everyone over there as well. It has some advantages. It has a series of shortcuts, and if we're all working in the same platform, it's easier for us all to understand each other. You will always be able to modify your own work environment, and that's absolutely fine, but we need to start with at the same point, and then we can progress from there. And if you've got your own particular modifications, then you can do that. The other thing is, once we get 26, I'll modify the work environment, and I'll push out a new work environment for Archicad 26, which will be based on the same thing, but will incorporate whatever new tools are in 26. I don't think there's many that are there. So I just want to touch on that quickly. In PG, I'll be forwarding something for you for that. Okay, facade management. Facades have been managed in different ways over the years. They've been, some of them have still got hot links. Some of them have got, they have to be pulled from separate folders. What we've been doing is changing them all to renovation filter switches. I'll see if I can make this work. So, So far, we've only done it with the single stories. Has anyone encountered one of these yet that Armani has? Anyone else hasn't? No one else has seen one? So we've done this with quite a lot of files, but they're not all available yet. So we don't want the view layout. So this is the standard master with a standard plan. We have taken the separate facade files and put them into the master and then pinned them with a renovation filter switch. So to make this work, you've got to be able to turn on the renovation palette, and we've set up different filters here with each facade linked on it. So all you need to do to change a facade, if a client has selected a different facade, is to change the filter and the master will change automatically. You don't have to link anything, you don't have to change any layers, you don't have to do anything else. What we've done with most of them is set up the most commonly sold facades. So I've got the S2, the S3, the S4, the P12 and the P6 for 8 homes singles. Eventually we'll do doubles, and hopefully one day we'll get to UE as well, but that's probably a long way off still. But it's helpful when on the higher selling single stories. It was also being done for estimating it. It makes it easier for the timber trust to be able to quote on the jobs. So we can switch them quite easily. They well, very easily really. You just select the correct filter. It works in 3D as well. You can switch there and it'll just automatically change straight away. So that's going to save time for production when you have to manage facades. I'm trying to get figures, or I've been hoping to get better figures on which facades are sold how often, but you know we'll keep the most popular ones in there. So again, this is something that we're wanting to do, but because of the number of facades, the number of houses, we're never going to get all of our files converted like this. But we'll do our best and work through it. Everything's on hold for the time being while we're converting to wall on wall, but you know, we'll get to it. So that was facades. Where are we? That's facades. Plan options. Plan options in the past have been done as a saved master with the variation done on the copy. What we're doing now is taking all the plan options and putting them into different stories within the master. One of the issues we've had is the number of files we have to manage in the development department. There are like 150 different masters, something like that. Every master's got 10 plan options and however many facades. There's just way too many files. So we're trying to incorporate all the elements of each master within each master file, so there's less management of different numbers of files. So facades are done with the renovation filter switch. Plan options will be done as different stories. So you can see, I'll show you with the Jardine. So that's the plan. You can see in the views, we've got floor plan options, and each of them are named there, and they're within the master as a different layer. The plan options are still being only managed as at brochure plan level, so you'll still have to do a bit of work to tidy them up. When you copy them from this story and put them into the main master level, there's still going to be a bit of tidying up to do, but at least they're there in the same file. And then if a change is made to the master, we'll update the whole master and not have to manage a whole bunch of different files. Because they are, if we look in 3D, that's not 3D. Oh, it just shut itself. Okay, that's a screen. This on the left of the slide here is you can see a shot from the master in 3D. You can see all the stories are, all the plan options are stacked together. They're all in their correct position relative to the floor plan. So you can use trace much more easily than if you, so you can see how the elements relate to each other within the file. So if you turn trace on, you can see what you need to remove from the main level before you copy the new elements back up. Okay. Now, I want to just talk about a couple of the plans that we've been adding. The slab plans have been in our masters for a long time, and they look like this. We have, as we've been working on the masters, we've been trying to improve the slab plans, and they now look like this. I just wanted to mention it and show them both because I thought I saw an occasion the other day where the plan had been reverted back to the earlier version. It might have been it might have come from one where it was version 1 rather than version 2. But if you've got the updated slab plan, please use that. If you have the old slab plan, then and we have to use it, then that's okay. But this detail down in the corner is not much good to us. It really doesn't do anything except show the dimensions that are already on the main plan. It's not very helpful. We have updated the detail of the corner of the garage, and that will be in the details manual. I'm going to go through that a bit more probably next week. We'll confirm how we're going to use that detail, but this detail in the corner of the garage has been causing some problems on site, and we're going to change that. We have changed it. It's just the detail hasn't worked its way through the masters yet, but I'm going to push something out so that we can get that updated. This particular detail, this with just these enlarged dimensions is no good. The other thing I wanted to mention was that dimensions on the slab. On this earlier version, they're all coming from the top of the rebate inside the brick rebate, which is great if you want to check the slab after it's already been poured, but we really want to check the slab before it's poured so that we know it's square. So on the updated slab plans, the dimensions go to the outside corner of the slab so that the concreters can measure their boxing and make sure that it's been done properly before they pour the concrete and discover that it's wrong when they check the dimensions. That's a small detail, but I think it's helpful. The updated slab plan also has running dimensions, which concreters, I believe, prefer to use when they can. And we've got some shading just to make it a bit clearer where the boxing on the slab goes. So they're being built into all the masters, and they'll continue to be updated. You can see the difference in the detail here. This isn't the updated detail, but we're going to change that fairly soon. Next one I wanted to talk about was the slab penetration plans. We are trying to add these have been overdue in our masters for a long time. The plumbers have been asking for them for as long as I've been here, and I believe before that, and they should have been on the plans, but we haven't been able to get them on. So they're being updated now, and the masters that a lot of masters have them now. I just want to, I'm not going to be asking production to add them if they're not there, because it's a bit messy at this stage. We might get to that, but not at the moment. So if they're in the master, you can use them. But a couple of things I want to just point out to them. This is the format of them. They're very simple. It's the shape of the slab and only the slab penetration points. So we turn on the wet area fittings, and then we have to add a 2D element which is aligned to the 3D object that's already in the plan. And the reason for that is that the penetration point doesn't always line up with a convenient hot spot on the 3D object. If there was always a hotspot in the correct place, or if I had the object editing knowledge to be able to put a hotspot in the correct place, I could maybe fix that, but I don't have that knowledge. So what we've elected to do instead is to add a 2D object that sits on the top of the 3D object. The reason that's important to know is because when you're in production, if you've got one of these slab penetration plans, and there's some movement of a 3D object, you need to be really careful to make sure that your 2D object on the slab penetration plan stays locked with the 3D object. Because if we move the 3D object, if the toilet moves to, a powder room gets bigger or something like that, and the toilet moves and the 2D object doesn't move, the slab penetration plan will show the toilet coming out in the middle of the floor instead of the end of the wall. You can lock the two pieces together, but I don't think we should rely on that. I think if you've got a slab penetration plan, just take the time to just check visually to see that the 2D elements are still aligned with the 3D elements. And particularly if you're ever going to change a production plan, make sure that you've got those, that the 2D and the 3D are grouped, and that you've got, you haven't suspended groups, so that when you move things, they stay together. Okay. Next.
Can I just ask a quick question on the floor?
Yes.
So the floor waste, obviously all the objects, there are 3D objects, the toilet and everything like that. So why can't we just show the floor waste coming through the slab plan only? So if you move the object, that floor waste is going to move with it?
Dennis, because you're talking about our home buyers, which is they use the 4D toilets. We use Archicad to show it, so they don't have that extra element attached to them.
They don't have
floor waste
to show on slab,
which is what Tim said, when you can't do it.
The other thing is that you could, but I do still want a separate slab plan to a slab penetration plan, because the plumber wants the slab penetration plan. He doesn't really care about what's going on with the slab. He only needs to know where it's going to be. And the concreter wants the slab plan, so there's different information on it. You could combine them, but for tradies that have got very specific jobs, I prefer to have a specific plan for that trade, so they can pull that sheet out and that's all they need to know, and they can move on after that. Similar to electrical plans, we have separate electrical plans because our electricians need to know that information, and they don't really care about all the other information that's bundled into everything. Attribute management. There has been an issue, and I'll see if my there's been an issue with duplicate layers occurring in some masters. Why didn't that come up? Here we go. If we have a look at the layer structure for this plan here, you can see that there are lots of duplicate layers with a little number after the end of them to indicate that it's been doubled up. Now, I've been trying to reproduce this error and I haven't been able to do it. Does anyone know exactly why this occurs? No?
Isn't it just when you're copying objects over and then you just keep adding the layer?
It could be, but I wasn't able to reproduce it. So I just wanted to talk about a couple of issues that are related to the same thing. Layers are attributes, they have attribute numbers. The first thing is that you should be careful when you're copying anything from one file to another, not to copy more than you need. Copy the element that you want and put that in. Don't highlight a whole drawing and then drop that in, because you'll get a lot of duplicates that you don't need. That's the first thing. Second thing is if you've got two things with the same name but a different attribute number, you can sometimes get duplicates. I wasn't able to reproduce that here, but I believe that can sometimes be a cause of the issue. The other thing that may be related to this is when you copy go back to my slide. When you paste an element, copy an element from one file, paste it into another file, if the layer that that element is on is turned off, you'll get this warning message here saying you can't simply add it, you have to do something. You can either add it to the Archicad layer, you can create new layers for elements, or you can show and unlock related layers. I wouldn't have thought people would be creating new layers, but just in case you're thinking about it, don't. That will create new layers. I don't think it's what's caused this issue here, but just in case, don't do that. Show and unlock the related layers, or add it to the Archicad layer. It's fine to add it to the Archicad layer and then assign it to the layer that you need. That will actually probably work better than trying to paste the layers in and creating multiple attributes when you copy across. It's a bit more mucking about though. The other thing is try and minimize the amount of copying between files. I know it's really important and unavoidable to do that in production, but if you can avoid it, if you can create something within the file, I'd prefer you did that. I know sometimes you just have to copy between files, so if we have to do that, we have to do that. I know we've got a lot of reference files in production that that are being used. I'm we are going to work towards phasing those out so that new masters make a lot more use of favorites, and that everything you need is within the master when you start. So you won't need to go to reference files. There'll be mod files, there'll be links, but we won't be using separate reference files as much as we rely on them now. I know it's unavoidable for the time being, but we're going to work away from that if we can. And especially when we start building in Archicad 26, that the favorites will be built in as part of the file. I would like to solve this issue of the multiple layers. So if anyone sees it and knows exactly, I was talking to Solly about it a couple of days ago, and he asked me to address it directly, but I haven't been able to reproduce it exactly. So I know it's come from some files from PG. So if anybody over there in PG, if you know what you do when you create new layers like that with the numbers on the end, please let me know, and we'll see if we can stop that happening. The other thing is, if you do have them, please, can you tidy them up? What you need to do is, if you've got like duplicate layers, like on this example here, where you've got interior walls and interior walls 1, delete one of the layers and move those elements onto the layer that you need to keep. If you don't clean it up like that, you're going to mess up layer combinations, and you'll mess up area schedules, and all sorts of things will be wrong. So this file in particular that I was looking at was a real mess, but it's happened in a few, so please be mindful of it, and please try and clean it up if you see it. Okay. Purging is fine in production. We're not going to do it in masters. Has anyone purged layers or purge attributes now, or we don't do that?
No. We essentially, because we've got such high turnover in production, essentially if we get a file and it's a mess. It's a mess.
It's a mess.
We just leave it a mess,
yes.
Do our change and move on.
Yes, and I understand that, and that's the way it is. And what I really want to do is make sure that everybody in production gets fewer files that are a mess. I would really like to change that, and we're working towards it. It's not always from masters. It's historical. There's a lot of issues. We're going to change it as best we can. I do understand that it's not. Production doesn't really have the time to clean these things up, but if there are issues created, then let me know. If there's anything I can do in the master to reduce that, then we will do that. I think there's a lot of scope for our drafting, production and efficiency to improve. I don't think it's necessarily recognised across the company how much scope there is, but I think we can make a big difference as we continue to improve the masters and improve the efficiency and the quality of our drawings. And we're going to get there. Dimensioning. We've changed our dimensioning standards. I sent out a document, and I don't know whether everyone here has seen the dimensioning standards document. It's available on the F drive. It's just a couple of issues. In Archicad 25, it's now possible to add room names or notes underneath the dimension. It wasn't possible in Archicad 18, so none of our masters had that in Archicad 18. But now all you need to do is, does everyone know how to do that? Does everyone in PG know how to add a note underneath the dimension? Don't know. Everyone here knows how to do it?
They've been doing it.
They've been
Yeah,
doing it? Yeah, okay, so we're all good with it. So please, now, I'm not expecting production to redo the dimensions when they've got when they come from the master, and maybe they're not perfect. You might have to tidy up a little bit, but you're not going to redo everything. I understand that. But it would be great and help clarity on site if we at least added the room names if they're not there. If you can take the time to do that much, just to tell people where the dimension is, it makes things a lot easier for tradies on site, for carpenters to read a set of dimensions. So if possible, if the dimensions aren't that clean, just check them and improve them a little bit. Again, in masters, we're going to keep on trying to improve the dimensions and make sure that all masters that come through are as good as they can be. How do I make that go away? There we go. There we go. Yeah, that's better. Extended witness lines again. Well, we're going to do that. I'm not going to get production to bother with that. I think dimensions look a lot better if you connect related dimension lines. Don't cross the dimension line with an unrelated witness line. I did see that the other day. That it's not good practice, but hopefully fairly basic. Okay.
Sorry, Tim, just with that one.
Yep.
So if you go to see how there's the two 240 mils.
Yep.
Would you connect those two, or would you leave?
Yeah,
those?
yes.
And so you've obviously got an overall at the top of that,
Yes.
which isn't shown.
It's off to the yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's the other way. Yep.
So do you want your witness line from the overall to go all the way down to the bottom wall?
Yeah,
Or do you want it to be the 600, 600, 600, 600?
No, I like the witness line from the overall to extend on the outside and run all the way through. And then the articulation lines, because we start on the outside of the dimension line groups with the largest dimensions, and then those witness lines run all the way through, and then the articulation lines run through the relevant outside wall point, and then the relevant walls run through. Sometimes the relevant walls tangle up with each other, so that's why it gets a bit messy, and I don't always follow through with connecting every set of walls. But if you're doing it exactly correctly, I would certainly prefer to do it that way. The other thing that we in some of the older masters, the windows are dimensioned like as offsets, but not not in a continuous dimension line, and they're set away from the rest of the dimension line block. Again, if that's what you've got in the master, then you may not bother fixing it. In masters, we are going to fix that. I don't think that's the correct way to dimension. We want a separate openings line that shows not just the offset, but the opening size, the door size, the window size on the same dimension line running all the way through. So we'll do that, and that's the standard that I want to work to, and that goes in that order with the overalls outside, the articulation, openings, and then the various, however many wall lines are required to make clear, to pick up all the relevant parts. And that's a bit of art rather than science.
Would it be worth moving openings to the very top?
No.
Just so articulations can line up with the walls if you want to.
No, the openings, if the
Because the openings still show
where all the ends of the walls are, because it's still showing the
Okay.
gap to the window and then to the corner.
Yeah.
Your
So-
articulation will still hit that corner.
Yeah. So, okay, we've got articulation runs through, and then the openings are broken by the articulation lines. So the opening lines, the offsets in the openings are on each length of wall, not across the whole wall. So, yeah. So again, it's done that way because it works better for brickies. So they, you know, it's the tradies who are reading it, the carpenters and the brickies who are reading it. So we want to set it up in a way that makes sense for them. So that's the way we should do it. Now something crossed my mind. That's so the number of walls lines there. I just want to mention. So it just says walls, 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 and then they usually relating to a straight line through the building, more or less, give or take. I have in the past. I'll show you this idea. I've added it to the Amblin. I think it works, but I don't know that it's worth the trouble. So you can see I've added grid lines here, A, B, C, D, and then down the other way I've got grid lines of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and on the dimension lines I've labelled the wall line, the dimension line by where the grid line is. So you can see very easily on the drawing where the dimension line runs through the house, and it's much easier to read what's going on. I think it's a good system, but I've kind of decided it's too much trouble and it's not worth enough to follow through. But it's in that file, but it's perhaps worth bearing in mind on a big house like the Amblin. Occasionally it might be justified if it gets really confusing and you've got a whole series of dimension lines, just to clarify where they are. But anyway, I've done that, but we won't follow through with that one. Okay. Attributes, dimension lines, details. Now, how are we going time-wise? We've still got a bit of time. Details have been a big issue, I know, and we're continuing to work on them, but we've been derailed for a little while. We have an enormous number. Chris has done a huge amount of work on drawing details, standard details for the whole company, across our range, and there are a lot of resources available that we have not yet properly implemented. In the masters now, the details are going within the drawing set. I think that's the case with pretty much. Is that happening in all files, or are you still getting associated details?
Most ones that are in Team 2, so the ACC space or production space, they're all still just associated details.
They're still associated details, yeah. So we're working away from that. Sorry.
I think the S3, the new master, it's got details in there.
Yes.
I think, yeah, that's the new ones.
Version 2 and version 3 should both have details within the working drawing set, and we will working towards that being the case for all masters. It hasn't seeped through yet. When the masters are done, they will include a set of standard details. So it'll look like this. Everyone will have seen these, yeah? So they're coming from the details manual. They're coming from the details manual, but if we copy them directly from the details manual, then you have to set up a link to that drawing back to the details manual, which can be a bit of a pain. I'm working on putting together a details workbook, which is like an interim file that will include most of the most common standard details that you might need, that you can then drag and drop from the details workbook into the production drawing. If masters on the whole will have them, but if you're going to add them, we'll have the details workbook, and you should just be able to add that easily. If we have a look at the settings. Is that going to open for me? Oh, it's tired. There we go. So you can see the source file of that details drawing is going back to the MarCorp details manual. It goes back to the F drive. If you open the details manual and just copy the drawing directly from the details manual, because within the details manual it's an internal file, it will maintain an internal path and it won't be able to find it. So that's why it's helpful to have an interim file, a details workbook. There I've collected all of our common details, and then when you copy it from there, it remembers its path. So at the moment we have a reference file that has a lot of details in it that we're using in masters. I don't know whether production are using it as well. No, we're not. I'm in the process of setting up a workbook where we'll collect the most common details, and you'll be able to use it as a reference file. You'll just be able to copy a drawing from the details workbook and drop it into the production file, and it will work perfectly and stay up to date. I'll put more information out about that in the next week or so. I was hoping to get it finished by today. It didn't quite happen. Last one. I'm going to finish ahead of time. That's good, isn't it? This is like small issues, but I'd just like to sort of mention, I think they're easy issues. A couple of things, when you open a file, if you can see this, if you don't close all your windows when you close a file, you increase the opening time the next time the file opens. Also, if you leave trace on, you increase the opening time. So just when you finish with a file, just as standard practice, I think everyone should on one of the tabs, right click, close all other windows, turn off trace, and then close the file. Then when it opens as fast as possible next time. So you're not opening windows unnecessarily. You don't get all these. You don't get this message saying reopening all the windows is going to cause extra time. When you open one of the older files, if you get this message about missing add-ons, just uncheck all those add-ons. You don't need them, and it'll just save you getting the error message next time. It just saves a few seconds when you open it. So I find error messages when you're opening a file really annoying. So I like to manage the file so that you don't get that next time you do it. Now the other one is the shit surface. Someone thought it was a good joke or something a few years ago, I don't know, to create a surface called shit. And I don't know that it's caused us trouble yet. It has caused trouble.
Yeah. Windows schedule that went out to a client.
Yeah, it's on a Windows schedule, yeah. So it's dangerous. We don't want it going out on a file by mistake. It's really easy to delete that surface. If you open a file, if you just check your surfaces and just delete it, it saves its hassle further down the track. I have asked us to look at that in masters, and if we see it in masters, we delete it. But there's definitely somewhere it's still going to come through in production. So if you see it, please remove it. Just click on your surfaces, search for it, delete, and then replace it with, I don't care what, doesn't matter. Probably just something white, but it's irrelevant. It's never going to be an important surface. Replace it with something so you don't get a missing element, but other than that, just get rid of it.
You just rename it.
You could rename it. It's just as easy to delete it.
If we delete it, there might be some missing elements.
No, I'm saying if you delete and replace, then you won't get missing elements. Yeah, delete and replace. You can rename it, I guess. That will achieve the same goal. Yeah. Okay, I'm finished sooner than I expected to be. I was going to do more run-throughs with the files, but that didn't seem to work as well. We might get to that next time. So we finished early. Has anyone got any questions? No, we good?
Sorry, I do have a question. You know how all the options are now being transferred to story levels?
Yes.
That won't be affecting any of like the external and internal like linear meters of the walls and things like that?
Oh, actually, Solly was asking me to talk about that, and I didn't get to that. No, when we have added them in the master, if the file is set up with story levels, the linear meters schedule will have been adjusted to only relate to the relevant story levels. So that should still work. When you paste those elements back in, you should be able to pick them up as long as the story levels are still correct. The linear meters schedules have been improved in some masters, and in some of the older masters they don't work well. You need to be really careful with them. I just want to flag that people have been relying on them, and you get a number on your production drawing of saying how many linear meters of whichever wall. I guarantee you if it's not one of the newer masters, it would probably be wrong, because the layers and the wall elements that have been used for different parts of the facades and so on will be throwing that figure off. So you do need to be careful with that figure. It's a live figure, you can update it, but you have to be careful with it.
On the drawings that we're still using, it's not the live version yet.
It's still
text, and we're still going through schedule. We're clicking the walls that we want to measure.
Okay, you're doing it that way.
The schedule.
Yep.
And creating the schedule and then updating the.
Okay, so you're covering off the fact that it's not working, which is important because it won't. On the newer masters, that we have rewritten the schedule so that it has got a live schedule that will update and will give you a correct figure. And I think that's not necessarily been recognised by everybody yet, but it is there. In the newer masters, in version 2 and in future versions, there will be a schedule for linear meters on the for the walls. Area schedules, I know, is another issue. They haven't been live either for squares, and they will be on the next version. It's but we're working on it. Okay, so that's it for now. We'll do this again in a couple of weeks. If you've got any particular issues that you want to address, particularly managers, if you've got issues that you want me to talk about, let me know. PG, if there's any issues that are causing you trouble or that you need some help with, please let me know, and I'll address those things directly next time. But that's it. Thank you all very much. There you go, this is my favorite.
Like, yeah. It's not like your 9 fucking presentation. We need a lesson. Like,
Hello, Dylan, are you there?
Yes. I need to stop the recording. Okay, yes.
I can see.
How do I do that?
Appreciate for getting today, and please send me the video record after this meeting.
I will do that, yes, if I can. If I can make it stop, I will do it.
Very interesting. If any question, I will ask you directly. Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
See ya. Bye bye.
Bye-bye, thank you.
Thank you, Steve.